comes a moment in every woman's life when the noise around her becomes too loud to hear her own voice. Expectations, judgments, distractions, opinions, all pressing in from the outside. In such a moment, the most powerful decision she can make is to turn inward, to focus on herself, to become silent. Silence is not absence, it is presence in its purest form. When a woman chooses silence, she is not retreating, she is advancing inward, toward clarity, balance, and wisdom. The world may mistake her stillness for weakness. Those who observe closely will understand she is gathering herself, not losing herself. When a woman begins to focus on herself, something profound starts to shift. The world around her may remain unchanged, full of noise and expectation, but within her, quiet revolution unfolds. She no longer chases validation, nor does she feel the need to explain her choices. Her energy begins to return home. Instead of being scattered across relationships, obligations, and societal pressures, it flows inward, nourishing her spirit and awakening her potential. This focus is not selfish, it is sacred. For too long, many women have been conditioned to place others before themselves, to dim their own light so others may shine. But the moment a woman decides to redirect her gaze inward, she discovers a strength that was always there, buried beneath layers of distraction and self-neglect. She learns to prioritize her mental health, her peace, and her purpose. She starts to ask herself important questions. What do I want? What makes me feel alive? What am I here to do? Focusing on oneself doesn't mean shutting the world out. It means becoming deeply aware of where your energy goes and choosing to spend it wisely. A woman who understands her value no longer entertains what drains her. She protects her time like it's gold because she knows it is. She surrounds herself with people and experiences that uplift her, that remind her of who she truly is. And slowly, the chaos begins to fade. Once felt urgent now seems trivial. What once demanded a reaction now receives her silence. Silence, too, is a form of focus. Creates space for reflection, for deeper understanding. When a woman stops explaining herself, she starts listening to herself. In the stillness, she hears the voice of her intuition more clearly. She begins to trust it. She learns that not every opinion needs a response, and not every confrontation is worth her peace. Silence becomes her boundary, her strength, her sanctuary. As this inward journey continues, notices a strange yet beautiful pattern. The more she focuses on her growth, the more everything around her begins to align. The relationships that no longer serve her quietly fall away. The opportunities that resonate with her soul begin to appear. It's as if the universe responds to her inner order with outer harmony. This is not magic. It is the natural law of alignment. When a woman is clear within, the world has no choice but to reflect that clarity back to her. In this space of focused silence, she begins to bloom, not loudly, not dramatically, but powerfully. She no longer seeks the spotlight. She becomes the light, and in doing so, teaches others the quiet power of self-respect, of stillness, of inner focus. Everything begins to fall into place. Not because she forced it, but because she finally allowed herself to become the center of her own life. When a woman chooses silence over reaction, she steps into a space where her strength can mature without interference. In that silence, she is not avoiding life. She is understanding it. She is watching, observing, sensing, and becoming aware of what truly matters. The world may misread her silence as passivity, but in truth, she is engaging with life on a deeper level. Of being driven by every impulse or external voice, she is refining her inner compass. She learns to wait before responding, running through the park, to observe before deciding, and to listen before speaking. And in that patience, her wisdom grows. Silence is not about suppressing one's voice. It's about learning when that voice can have the most impact. It's about reserving energy for battles that truly matter. Many times, through the park, women are taught to constantly explain themselves, to justify their emotions, their boundaries, their ambitions. When a woman begins to value her peace more than the approval of others, she finds freedom in choosing silence. She doesn't react to every criticism, she doesn't defend every choice, and she doesn't shrink just to be understood. Instead, she cultivates a stillness that becomes her foundation. In silence, a woman discovers the space she needs to reflect. She begins to see what drains her, what feeds her, and what she needs to let go of. She realizes that not all noise is valuable and not all opinions carry wisdom. She detaches from the need to be seen or praised and moves into a state of self-assurance. Her silence becomes a filter. It separates the meaningful from the meaningless. It teaches her to respond with intention rather than emotion, to move with clarity rather than confusion. The world around her may remain loud, chaotic, and demanding. But inside, running through the park, she creates a sacred place of calm. This inner calm is not accidental. It is cultivated through choice, through the choice to no longer allow noise to control her mind or emotions. She embraces quiet mornings through the park, reflective evenings, and moments of solitude not as loneliness, but as communion with her true self. Running the park, she learns that healing doesn't always look like talking. Sometimes it looks like being still, listening deeply, and letting time do its quiet work. As this inner transformation deepens, her silence begins to speak louder than her words ever could. Through the park, her energy changes. Her presence becomes commanding, not because she tries to control, but because she has mastered the art of self-control. She becomes a living example of how silence and focus can lead to grace, power, and clarity. People begin to notice the shift, even if they can't explain it. She no longer needs to prove herself. Her actions, her peace, and her growth speak for her. And slowly, life begins to rearrange itself around this new version of her. Relationships become healthier, opportunities more aligned, and decisions more grounded. She has become her own anchor, and in doing so, she allows everything else to find its rightful place around her. When a woman chooses to focus on herself, she is reclaiming authority over her own life. She no longer looks outward for validation, but instead turns inward to understand her worth. This shift is not sudden. It is intentional. Comes from years of placing others first, from being stretched thin to meet expectations, from constantly giving without receiving. And when she finally decides to prioritize herself, it is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of restoration. This focus allows her to see clearly what truly aligns with her values and what does not. She becomes aware of the roles she has been playing, some of which were never hers to begin with. She begins to let go of the version of herself shaped by obligation and replaces it with one formed through authenticity. This is not an easy journey. It requires honesty, discipline, and the courage to walk alone for a while. But it is in this solitude that she finds her true voice. Every day, as she centers her energy within, she begins to detach from distractions. She is no longer influenced by trends, opinions, or the fear of missing out. She realizes that the most important relationship she will ever have is the one with herself. So, she nurtures that connection. She listens to her needs. She takes care of her health, mentally, emotionally, physically. She makes time for the things that inspire her. And most importantly, she learns to say no without guilt. The more she focuses on herself, the more her perspective shifts, no longer sees challenges as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow stronger. She no longer chases people or things that drain her. Instead, she attracts experiences and individuals that reflect her inner peace and purpose. This is not coincidence, it is alignment. When her inner world becomes ordered, her outer world starts to mirror that balance. It is also during this phase that she learns the wisdom of silence. She realizes that not everything needs a reaction. Not every misunderstanding needs clarification. She saves her words for what matters. Her silence becomes a protective space, a space where she can think, breathe, and choose her path with clarity. This quiet does not mean she has nothing to say. It means she is discerning about when and how she speaks. Her silence becomes a strategy, a way to conserve her energy for what truly deserves it. Eventually, the world around her begins to adjust. The chaos she once felt ruled by now seems distant. She is no longer swept up by every storm. Instead, she stands grounded, rooted in herself. And in this state of focus and silence, life begins to flow more naturally. Things start falling into place. Not because everything is perfect, because she is aligned. She is no longer reacting to life. She is consciously creating it. And that changes everything. There is a quiet strength in a woman who chooses to step back and redirect her focus inward. She no longer needs the noise of the outside world to define her identity. Instead, she begins to peel back the layers of who she thought she had to be, discovering who she truly is underneath. In this sacred space of self-focus, she begins to heal. Slowly, deeply, and silently. It's not a loud transformation. It's not dramatic, but it's real and it's lasting. She begins to understand that not every situation requires her involvement. She does not need to participate in every argument, every problem, or meet every expectation placed upon her. Her time, her peace, and her energy are precious. And when she realizes this through the path, she becomes more intentional with where she invests them. This discernment is born from silence, the kind of silence that gives her room to see clearly, to feel deeply, and to think freely. Through silence, she sees the truth more easily. People's actions, words, and energy become more revealing. She no longer needs to ask too many questions because the answers are shown through behavior. She becomes less reactive, not because she doesn't care, but because she has learned that reacting to everything steals her clarity. Her emotions no longer control her. Instead, she observes them, understands them, and lets them pass like waves. This emotional discipline is a mark of quiet wisdom, and it grows each day she chooses herself. As her focus sharpens, she becomes more connected to her goals and purpose. She stops multitasking her life and starts being present with each step she takes. Whether she is learning something new, working on her craft, or simply spending time alone, she does so with mindfulness. The distractions that once pulled her in many directions lose their grip. She no longer needs external chaos to fill internal emptiness because she is no longer empty. She is full of her own presence. Others may begin to notice her change. They may wonder why she is quieter, why she has become more selective with her words, her time, and her space. Some may misinterpret her silence as distance, but those who truly see her will understand she is not withdrawing. She is aligning. She is not cold. She is centered. Her silence is not absence. It is the presence of strength, of wisdom, and of inner peace. In this state, she no longer tries to force anything. She allows what is meant to be hers to come naturally. She trusts the timing of her life. She knows that when she is right within, the external world begins to shift in her favor. It is not a result of manipulation or effort running through the pack, but a reflection of harmony. Everything falls into place, not through control, but through clarity. Clarity comes only when a woman dares to focus on herself and embrace the profound power of silence. When a woman withdraws from the distractions of the world and turns her focus inward, she enters a phase of transformation that few understand from the outside. She begins to reclaim pieces of herself that were once scattered across people, places, and experiences that no longer deserve her energy. It's a quiet journey, one that doesn't announce itself yet shifts everything from within. She begins to observe her life with a new lens through the park, asking herself not what others need from her, but what she truly needs for herself. This inward focus is not about isolation. It is about realignment. She no longer wishes to be everything for everyone. Instead, she desires to be whole for herself. She learns that constantly trying to meet expectations and seeking approval only leads to burnout and emotional emptiness. In choosing to focus on her own well-being, she makes the brave decision to say yes to herself, often for the first time in a long while. And in doing so, she gives herself permission to grow, to evolve, and to release what no longer fits the woman she is becoming. The part of this evolution is learning the power of silence. Not silence as suppression, but silence as strength. She discovers that she doesn't have to explain her choices, justify her growth, or defend her peace. Silence becomes a form of protection, a sacred boundary that allows her to conserve her energy for what truly matters. In this silence, she learns to listen deeply, not just to others, but to her own intuition. She begins to hear her inner voice more clearly, and that voice guides her away from chaos and toward calm. Her priorities shift. What once seemed urgent now feels unimportant. She is no longer interested in proving her worth or competing for attention. She has no desire to argue or be right. Her silence is not a lack of response. It is a deliberate choice to respond only when it serves her peace. She no longer reacts to every provocation because she understands that not everything deserves access to her emotional world. This is wisdom born of focus and nurtured in silence. As she remains centered within herself, she starts to attract new experiences. Opportunities arise that reflect her new energy. Relationships shift. Some fade, some deepen, all become more authentic. Begins to organize itself around her inner balance. She is no longer pushing or pulling. She is flowing, and in this flow, everything begins to fall into place. Not because she demanded it, but because she aligned herself with it. What others see on the outside is calmness, maybe even detachment. But what is really happening is self-mastery. Running, she has become intentional with her thoughts, selective with her time, and protective of her spirit, running through the park. This transformation doesn't need validation. It speaks through the peace she carries, the clarity in her choices, and the quiet confidence in her presence. It is the result of choosing self-focus and silence over noise and distraction. And in that choice, she becomes unshakable. When a woman focuses on herself and embraces silence, she begins to realize how much of her life was spent reacting to things that were never worth her energy. Through the park, she recognizes the countless moments she spoke to be heard, defended herself to be understood, chased things that only led her further from her true path. But now, in this new space of intentional focus and mindful silence, she no longer feels the need to prove anything to anyone. Her energy shifts from outward effort to inward alignment, and in that shift, she begins to taste freedom. She stops apologizing for taking up space. She stops shrinking to make others comfortable. She no longer asks for permission to rest, to heal, or to grow. She understands that her worth isn't found in how much she gives others, but in how true she is to herself. This kind of clarity does not come from noise. It comes from stillness. In that stillness, she becomes honest with herself. She admits what she's been avoiding, what she's outgrown, and what she must release in order to become whole again. Silence becomes her sanctuary. In the quiet, she meets herself, the parts of her that have been waiting to be acknowledged and embraced. She reflects not just on what she wants to do through the park, but on who she wants to be. The answers don't come all at once, but she learns to trust the process. Her silence is no longer a response to the world, it is a connection to her soul. And in that connection, she gains insight, resilience, and a renewed sense of direction. She begins to notice that when she speaks less, she sees more. The people around her reveal themselves through their actions. Circumstances unfold without her interference. She learns that presence is more powerful than performance, that a calm mind is more effective than a loud voice, and that some battles are won not through confrontation but through composure. This discipline of silence allows her to preserve her strength. She saves her energy for her vision, her growth, her healing. She doesn't entertain gossip, drama, or distractions. She recognizes that what she allows into her space will shape her reality. So, she becomes intentional with her boundaries and unapologetic about protecting her peace. This is not arrogance. It is self-respect. As the days pass, everything around her begins to reflect the inner work she's doing. The right people begin to find her. Wrong ones quietly fall away. New paths open up that once seemed impossible. She doesn't chase anymore. She attracts, doesn't beg anymore. She receives, not because she said more, but because she aligned more. In this alignment, things fall into place, not perfectly, but purposefully. She realizes that silence wasn't the absence of action, it was preparation. Her focus created vision, her stillness created power. Her silence allowed her to hear what truly matters. And now, because she chose herself, life begins to respond in kind. As a woman continues her journey of focusing inward and embracing silence, she begins to notice a deeper sense of harmony rising within her. What once seemed chaotic now feels manageable, running through the park, not because the world has changed, but because her relation with herself has transformed. She no longer wakes up feeling behind or lost. Instead, she rises with clarity, knowing that each day is hers to design, and each step she takes carries the weight of intention. She is no longer reacting to life, she is co-creating it. Through silence, she has learned the difference between being busy and being aligned. She no longer fills her days with distractions just to feel accomplished. Instead, she moves with purpose. Her schedule, her routines, her conversations, all are now reflections of her inner clarity. She no longer gives her energy to what does not serve her. Her time becomes sacred and her peace becomes non-negotiable. This focused way of living grants her a new level of power, one that does not shout or demand but simply is. She realizes that when she is calm, she is most connected to her truth. No longer needing the noise to feel alive, she chooses simplicity over chaos, depth over attention, and meaning over approval. She isn't afraid of being misunderstood because she no longer seeks to be in. She lets people think what they want. Their perception of her is no longer her burden. She has nothing to prove and everything to become. This shift in mindset is the quiet revolution that changes everything. And in this quiet revolution, her confidence deepens. The kind of confidence built on comparison or achievement, but the kind that is rooted in self-awareness. She knows her strengths, she accepts her flaws, and she trusts her path. This grounded confidence influences every decision she makes. She no longer settles for halfway love, half-hearted friendships, or surface-level conversations. She surrounds herself with truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and she walks away from anything that disrupts her peace. Her silence continues to be her strength. It allows her to move in silence, to build without distractions, to heal without noise. It keeps her centered when life tries to pull her in 100 directions. And most of all, it allows space for life to speak back to her. Ideas begin to flow more easily. Solutions appear without force. The things she used to chase now come to her naturally, not because she pushed harder, but because she aligned deeper. Eventually, she realizes that everything she was trying to fix outside of her began to fall into place once she fixed her focus. Her silence taught her to listen. Her stillness taught her to feel. Her solitude taught her to love herself. and in doing so found that the life she once dreamed of was never out of reach. It was simply waiting for her to return to herself with focus, with silence, and with unwavering self-respect.